Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Yes, you've guessed it. Welcome to another short episode of Bullshit Detection Time. This time, it comes from our friends yonder on the other side of this Great Wall of China, who have allegedly plonked a spacecraft on the far side of the moon, they called it. I don't know if they're worried about copyright infringements by naming it after a Pink Floyd album, but most certainly that is what they say they have done. Now, this is quite interesting because this news segment is probably the shortest news segment in the history of news segments, especially when it's such, how can I put it? Such important news. I mean, let's face it, to be putting craft on the far side of the moon, the part of the moon, as they say, never shows itself to Earth, it is quite astounding. But let's have a little listen in to see what this lady, who is reading off a script, as we know, because they all do, says to us, and then I shall interject when I see fit. It is very short, so I'm going to have to be a little bit on my toes here, but let's give it a crack and see what you think. Let's have a listen in.
China has landed an uncrewed spacecraft on the far side of the moon for the second...
No, it hasn't. No, it most certainly definitely has not. It hasn't because you can't. And there are a few reasons why you can't land a spacecraft anywhere outside of Earth. In fact, there are a reason or two why you can't leave Earth in the first instance at all, whatever way you want to look at things. One of the reasons is that we experience on this Earth something called gas pressure. We live in a gas pressure system. It's what enables us to live. It's what enables us to breathe. It's what enables our bodies to maintain the shapes that they have when we're walking around and all that sort of stuff. If we were next to a ever-expanding vacuum of space, then the gas that we experience here on Earth would fill the available space with immediate effect. So, what does that tell us? The fact that we have gas pressure? Well, that tells us that there must be containment here on Earth. In other words, we have a closed system. Pressure is the measure of something pushing against the interior of the walls of a container. So goes the definition of the word pressure. Not my invention, it's the definition of the word. And guess what? Gas pressure on Earth is also not my invention. It's something that we experience on a daily basis, thank the Lord, if you believe in one. So that puts pay to one theory that you could possibly leave Earth in the first place. No, you cannot. There are things called natural law. That is to say that that is how things are always in nature. Always. And one of them is the second law of thermodynamics, which states quite clearly that if you had a vacuum and next to it you had a gas pressure system, you would have to have some sort of barrier in between the two, because otherwise the gas would fill the available space with immediate effect. If you don't believe me, there are plenty of videos of professors talking about this from Yale University and MIT over in America and all the rest of it. They explain it very clearly how gas pressure would move into the available space with immediate effect. It doesn't move. It's literally there instantaneously. So in order for that not to happen, we have to be contained and thus experience gas pressure here on Earth. So there's the first problem with that. Let's continue to see what this lady here reads from her studio seat.
In time, the mission is difficult because this region of the moon permanently faces away from the Earth, making communication difficult. The probe's expected to use a drill and mechanical arm to collect rock and soil and transport it back to Earth.
Again, that is not the case at all. That is not happening. We cannot do that because, like I've just said, there are a few reasons for it. I will repeat very gladly, we have a gas pressure system here on Earth, which means we must be living in containment. Pressure being the measure of that which pushes against the interiors of the walls of a container. That is the pressure pressing up against it. There is also another slight issue with all of this, one that isn't being made enough of at the moment, but I shall definitely be pushing it to every possibility possible, and that is that everything on Earth where we live is measured flat. Everything, all our mapping, all our navigation, everything that we do to create the maps that we have, even the globe models with all their latitude and longitude lines, they are derived from elevation angle measurements to Polaris. Angle measurements that require a flat plane, that would be the ground that we reside on, because we are navigating the ground or the water if you're on a boat. And that could be thousands of miles, because you're trying to get an angle to a GP, which is your ground position, a 90-degree angle. So not only do we experience gas pressure here on Earth, which clearly proves that we live in containment, so in other words, a closed system, and don't get me started on gradients and pressure gradients and all that sort of stuff, because in order to get pressure gradients, you would need gas pressure to be formed in the first instance, which would require containment in the first instance. Adding to that, Earth is flat, has to be flat, because that is how it's measured, that is how it's mapped, and that is how it's navigated. Always has been, always will be. Anyway, I thought I would just bring this short message to you, just to remind you all that, you have these little bits of news here, there, and everywhere that are thrown in for good measure in between election headlines and stuff like that, which we're being flooded by at the moment. And I just thought it would be important to, every now and then, remind people that these lies are, put in there all the time. People are being propagandized at all times, and they don't even realize it. Now, the stuff I'm bringing you there, they're not my theories. That's not a theory from a conspiracy theorist. It's not a flat earther point of view or anything like that. They are facts. One of them is natural law, and the other one is celestial navigation. Both of them are how they are, how we find them to be. They're not inventions of mankind. Very important to distinguish between a theory and beliefs, which is unfortunately what most of the world kind of falls for, or actual factual knowledge, which I much, much prefer. So on that note, I hope you've all had a lovely weekend. I hope you're all ready to get cracking for the new week to come. And I'm sure I will see you all soon. Some of yous much, much sooner. Until then, take it easy for now. And ta-ta.